speaking, this is Israel personified, or someone within Israel of stature personified. Notice he said to me, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will display my glory. But I said, I have labored to no purpose. I have spent my strength in vain and for nothing. Yet what is due me is in the Lord's hand, and my reward is with my God. Who is it that you could say it looked like the mission failed? Remember Isaiah 42, he won't falter or be discouraged. There's reason to quit, reason to give up hope, reason to lose hope, but he won't quit. Now he says himself, I've labored for no reason. Now let's just read this in terms of Yeshua. Not try to paint him into it, but say, well, this makes sense. Here we are almost 2,000 years later, and still the bulk of the Jewish people don't believe. Labored in vain. And now the Lord says, he who formed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob, what? What's this? To bring Jacob back to him and gather Israel to himself? I thought he was called Israel. But his mission is to bring Jacob back to God and to gather Israel to the Lord? How can it be? Because Messiah is Israel, fulfills the purposes of Israel, just as the one stands on the Olympic stand and representing the nation and fulfills the dream and destiny of the nation. Italy won the World Cup. One of our students in our school of ministry, spiritual young man, but he watched the game. And when Italy won in penalty shootouts, he broke down weeping. Italy won. Well, it was just a handful of Italian guys playing on a team. No, Italy won. When I shared that concept with that Russian Jewish wrestler, that was the light that went off inside of him, subsequently helped in the path to him becoming a committed follower of Yeshua. So the servant, this prophetic figure here, who is called Israel, but feels like he's failed in his mission, has a calling to bring Israel back to God. Now the Lord says, he who formed me in the womb to be a servant, to bring Jacob back to him and gather Israel to himself, for I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has been my strength. He says, this is what God says to him, it is too small a thing for you to be my servant, to restore the tribes of Jacob and bring back those of Israel I've kept. The servant of the Lord says, I feel like I've labored in vain. God says, no. Just bringing Israel back, that's too small. I will also make you a light for the Gentiles, that you may bring my salvation to the ends of the earth. This is the prophets. Who is doing this? Who does this refer to? Who is it that represents Israel himself, that is part of Israel, that is called to bring the Jewish people back to God, and yet feels as if he failed in his mission? And yet God says to him, no. Just the Jewish people, that's too small. I'm making you a light to the ends of the earth. I'm bringing through you, using you to bring salvation to the Gentiles. It's not a matter of painting someone into this. It's a matter of getting hit in the face with, who else could this be? This is what the Lord says, the Redeemer and Holy One of Israel, to him who was despised and abhorred by the nation. Who could that be? For time's sake, I'm just reading from one English translation from the NIV. I mean, any verse disputed, any question, we just open up the Hebrew and translate from it and discuss it. Who's he talking to? To him who was despised and abhorred by the nation. To the servant of rulers, kings will see you and rise up. Princes will see and bow down because of the Lord who is faithful, the Holy One of Israel who has chosen you. Boy, that's pretty clear. And to this day, kings bow down before the Messiah of Israel. Now you go to the 52nd chapter. And when we spend time this afternoon looking at Isaiah 53, it's technically 52:13 down through 53:12. But when we spend some time looking at this, you'll have a laundry list of objections as to why this can't be Jesus. The funny thing is, when someone just reads it, Hebrew, English, any reliable translation, there's only one person they see. There are all kinds of testimonies of Jews coming to faith through reading this. One of the cutest was of one man that's a Messianic Jewish leader today. He was shown this, but he wasn't familiar with where it was. He didn't know it was in the Bible. He was shown the passage. And when he read it, he said, well, that's a description of Jesus. And they said, well, that's actually from your own Bible. He had no idea. Famous testimony of one other Messianic Jewish leader, that he had an English Bible he was given when he was bar mitzvahed. And he became a believer, and he read this, and he found that he went and showed it to his father, and his father read it, and he got angry. He said, somebody changed, they changed it. He said, Dad, this is the Bible I was given when I was bar mitzvahed. Somebody changed it. As we deal with all the objections, you'll see the objections are actually 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 0. Is it a matter of painting someone back in or drawing bullseyes around an arrow? Or is this a matter of saying, let the Scriptures speak and let's draw truthful conclusions? I've looked at some of these for years and wrestled with every other potential way to read it. I've tried to read it as if the anti-missionaries were right and the traditional rabbis were right. It just doesn't work. Tried to read some of these other passages and explain it like this and like that. It doesn't work. So see, my servant will act wisely. Some Jewish traditions interpret this with reference to Israel. That would be the majority. But there are many that interpret it with reference to the Messiah. Right to this day. See, my servant will act wisely or prosper. He'll be raised and lifted up and highly exalted. If you look in the book of Isaiah, elsewhere, it's only the Lord himself, Yahweh, the God of Israel, who's high and exalted. Just as there were many who were appalled at him. Right, you. His appearance was so disfigured beyond that of any man, and his form marred beyond human likeness. So he will sprinkle or startle many nations, and kings will shut their mouths because of him, for what they were not told they will see, and what they have not heard they will understand. So he's going to be highly exalted, but first suffer terribly, to the point of disfigurement. And yet kings will have their eyes open to him. Who's this talking about? You don't have to speculate, look in the future, wonder, maybe. We look at history. Who has believed our message? To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Even that question means not everybody. He grew up before him like a tender shoot, like a root out of dry ground. Grew up a carpenter's son in Nazareth, which was just a lowly city. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. Just a regular young Jewish man in terms of outward physical appearance. But as he goes on, life, and as it culminates in his rejection and crucifixion, he was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering, or pain, sickness. Like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. This is the Jewish people speaking as it is to the prophetic books. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows, yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him, and afflicted. In other words, when we saw him dying, we saw him suffering, we thought he was suffering for his own sins. Through the generations, if he suffered, it's for his own sins. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we're healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Do you know the picture that's painted here is clearer and more in depth than any